Thanks for joining me today on this PD on using daily reviews and incorporating evidence-informed learning science strategies. I'm Nicola and I am a classroom teacher, and I'm currently coming to the end of a research master's which has been on cognitive psychology learning strategies and the mastery learning folder process. These are the books that I'm using to talk about daily reviews. Well worth getting for your library, some great information and practical strategies. So one thing that I've learned in my studies in the last few years is that current performance, what we see in class, what we think students are achieving during instruction, can be a highly unreliable index of whether learning has actually occurred. Now, the reason for this was discovered 125 years ago when Ebbinghorst did some research on forgetting. And basically, very quickly, over time, we forget a lot of what we've learned. It doesn't actually translate into our long-term memory. So today, I'd like us to take a look at some strategies that will help to move learning from working memory into long-term memory that you can incorporate into your daily reviews. So first of all, why should we have a daily review? Well, there's two reasons. First of all, it reactivates student prior knowledge, which then can reduce their cognitive load as they build on the knowledge that they already have. So if you're talking about a topic that you had previously introduced, bringing that to mind will help them build upon it. The second reason is to space the retrieval of prior knowledge to consolidate previous learning. So that can also be incorporated. So here's some questions to ask yourself. Which words or facts, procedures or concepts need to become automated? And what needs to be reviewed for the lesson that is forthcoming? There are efficient and effective ways to do this. There are certain mentally challenging learning conditions that are called desirable difficulties that actually enhance long-term memory acquisition. Mentally challenging conditions mean making students think. If you repeat the same thought-demanding task again and again, the brain seeks to remember it to avoid this thinking effort. And that's the means by which learning moves from working memory into long-term memory. So every learning objective is based on knowledge. Remembering comes first, and remembering is appropriate to all different levels of learning objectives. So cognitive psychology has identified a number of strategies that really help the process of moving learning into long-term memory. Spacing student practice, using retrieval practice, asking elaborative questions, and particularly in maths, interleaving the practice of content. And I'll go through each of these. Spaced practice means providing time between practice opportunities after you've provided the initial instruction. Expanding the intervals works very well to assist students to retain the knowledge that they've gained over longer periods. Retrieval practice involves getting students to recall their past learnings and understandings, and this is from memory. So when we combine spacing with retrieval, it's called spaced retrieval practice, and it's a very powerful strategy. It involves spacing revision and then at those revision sessions using retrieval strategies. So retrieval practice is retrieving learning from memory. And here's some ideas of things that you can use during your daily review sessions. Multiple choice questions, if you have iPads in your school, using apps like Kahoots, filling in the blanks, drawing. For example, if you had been looking at life and living learning objectives, students might draw a pet enclosure to show or to recall and demonstrate what pets need. Individual or team competitions like the sheriff game, student timelines, mind maps, diagrams, and whiteboard responses. Now here's some additional ideas from the book Powerful Teaching. This one involves placing questions based on a lesson into an ice cream container as you go through the week. And then those questions can be drawn out for use during the daily review or during lesson transition. So just creating a cumulative bundle of question flashcards. At the end of the lesson, you can ask students to summarise the content from memory, or at a daily review session, you can ask them to do a brain dump where they write down everything they can remember on a particular topic or concept. They may then share this with their partner or with their group. Students can be asked to write down 2 things that they learnt in a current or a previous lesson. They can be provided with short answer worksheets. If you're looking for responses from everyone in a group setting, you can provide students with ABCD card sets, and then you can ask multiple choice questions and you can ask them to show the correct response. The same thing could be used for true and false responses, such as the green side for true, the red for false. This gives you a good indication of where each student is at. You can ask students to write their own questions on a topic or concept or lesson. Instead of note-taking, you can include retrieve-taking, which is kind of like summarising. At the end of the lesson, students write down notes on the instruction that they have just received. Elaboration is another strategy. It's actually a form of retrieval, but it's where teachers ask students how and why questions. So it's getting beyond those factual remembering questions, asking them to relate their past learning and understandings and give more detailed answers. It's getting students to explain aloud. This both builds their schema through the process of them thinking about what they've learned and relating it to new learning, and it also helps them to consolidate over time. So here's an example. Teachers can model think aloud so that students are then able to elaborate as well. So here's a math example. So for this question, I would model aloud that when I'm going to add 8 and 3, I immediately think of friends of 10. I know that 8 and 2 is 10 and 1 more is 11. So I put the 1 down and transfer the 10s. If I add that 1 to the 4, then I'm going to get double 5. I know my doubles already, so I could put the 0 down and carry the 1. And once again, if I add that 1 to the 7, I get double 8, and I know that's 16. So modelling this will help them to understand how to use those particular strategies and also how to explain their learning. So for elaboration, you can ask students to explain to their partner something that they've previously learned. They can be provided with blank or partial mind maps on a topic, and they can use learning journals. Now, weekly and monthly reviews have additional advantages. So if you're spacing out your reviews of material over a longer period of time, that increased spacing helps to increase retention. It attenuates forgetting, it connects the learning that students have received over time, and it reinforces automaticity. You can use the same strategy, spaced retrieval practice, elaboration, and there's also another one that benefits maths practice over time, and that's interleaving. So interleaved practice with maths questions provides a mixed selection of questions from different topics through quizzes, written responses, elaboration tasks that the student has learned over time. So how does this help? Well, often we provide blocked practice in maths. The topic is fractions. We practice our fraction questions, or the same type. We might practice all addition fractions, then we might practice all multiplication questions. When we mix up the questions, students get to practice both selecting the correct strategy and also the procedure to solve it. So if you're thinking about adding fractions or multiplying fractions, the strategy is quite different, and they need to be able to practice remembering which strategy to choose. Now, this idea of selecting the right strategy shows up in problems with students completing word problems in primary school, for example. So that type of practice would help in that context. Also, for older students, when they sit exams, say in maths, they're not going to be provided with information about which strategy to choose. So it helps prepare them far better for those situations. So just some summary points now. Try to involve everyone in your daily reviews. So the problem is, if each individual child is not doing the thinking work, then they're not benefiting from the review. They're not benefiting from the retrieval practice. Ask questions at different learning objective levels. Provide feedback on the responses you get, and obviously target remediation at the point of need. Provide revision questions for the following day, week or month. So for example, you can tell them, tomorrow I'm going to be asking you about this, or you'll need to know how to explain this process. Vary the review activities, so all types of teacher-led, partner explanation, multiple choice, open response, demonstrations. That just makes it more interesting, and it's beneficial. Make it efficient for yourself. So build routines that the students become used to. Use what works well for your workload management. So particularly if you teach the same year level, and you can start preparing retrieval questions and activities in advance that can be reused. Keep your daily reviews short and low stakes. There's a number of resources out there to help you with your daily reviews and with the use of spaced retrieval practice. There's 2 websites at the top there that have resources. My website, masterylearninggroup.com, has got Australian curriculum flashcards, which may be able to be used by you in reflecting your classroom content and following up with retrieval and other activities. Here's the information on the books that I have used to talk to you today. And Mastery Learning folders use spaced retrieval practice, elaboration and interleaving for ongoing cumulative practice of classroom instruction. If you would like to arrange PD on how they work, please feel free to get in touch. There's my information, and thanks for your interest in this PD. I look forward to hearing from you, and thanks for your time.